Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Saga. Dave Cottingham here with Hannah Burr. Good evening, Hannah.
Good evening. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. We are here to continue our discussions around all those publication stories around the Skywalker saga. But in this episode, we are continuing way before the Skywalker saga, because we are diving into volume 2 of the High Republic comic. This is called The Heart of Drengir. I guess that's what we're going to say.
Drengir? Sure.
Drengir. Yeah, I don't think I've heard it in an audiobook yet. So
I haven't. Well, you do audiobooks. I read the hard copy. So
yeah, so you're saying Drengir. I'll hear.
Like when you read. It's like when you read Hermione's name for the first time in the Harry Potter books.
Yeah. How did you pronounce it?
I pronounced it Hermione.
That's good. Until you hear it. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely been a lot of Star Wars stuff that I've heard in audiobooks. I'm like, oh, that's how you say it.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say that it's just throughout the books. You're just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
That is hilarious. Okay. So the Heart of Drengir, and then maybe some of you that are listening have no idea what a Drengir is, and we will discuss that. But this is volume 2, like I said, written by Kevin Scott, the great Kevin Scott, who's highly involved, obviously, in all the High Republic publications. He's got some novels out there now, but this is still basically still part of Wave 1. So this is the beginnings of the High Republic comics, but hasn't been run that long. This only came out December of this past year, so we're just not that far behind it. I think they're only on issue 15 or something like that on the shelves anyway right now. This collects issues 6 through 10. So did I get that right? I think that's right. 6 through 10.
Yeah,
right?
it is 6 through 10.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. I love these books. So what's your overall initial thought of this volume here?
I just love the fact that we're encountering different creatures that either utilize different parts of the Force or cannot be traced by the Force. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that just provides a new obstacle for the Jedi that's a little more terrifying.
Yes.
Because they're going in blind. And then with this, it's kind of weird to see them team up with some Hutts.
Yes.
And then you've got, young Keeve Trennis. I'm still getting used to everybody's name, so I have them written down here. You're still getting used to Keeve Trennis, and she goes through this almost like a trial that Luke did when he saw the vision of Darth Vader. So you see her almost go through this trial to try to save her master. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's a lot going on.
Yes. Yeah. I remember you actually, the first time you read it, you were like, wow, I need to read this again. Because, and I felt that too. I did. Cause I found myself while I was reading it the first time, paging back a couple times and rereading some stuff. Cause it is. And of course it's I find it still a lot to digest because we're still experiencing stuff in the original timeline. You gotta kind of train your mind to take yourself out of everything that's happening, in the Skywalker saga and during that time between, and really take yourself out and be like, okay, all that truly hasn't happened yet, and this is 200 something years before, and it's new characters, new setting. And it like you kind of said, it challenges a lot of what we know about the Force, especially with these new villains. Because as again, I keep thinking like as Jedi, we have this tendency of thinking their only foe that can match up to them are Sith because they're dark side users. But these books, novels, comics have clearly shown that, you know, you have a group like the Nihil, and then you have these creatures called the Drengir that are formidable adversaries. And it's strange because there's so many Jedi in this time period, and they're all it's great because there's one, you know, full page part of this book that shows all these Jedi, and they're all saying the Force is with us. The Force, you know, it's like they are tuned in. It feels like, and they're still not able to fully combat some of these evils. I mean, it's a crazy time.
It is. And I think also, I mean, it's nuts, but that's what makes it great because it is something new. And I love that they're doing that. But I think the other reason why you have to go back a couple of pages, reread, try to figure out what's going on is that we have the benefit with all the other things we're doing that are, you know, within the Skywalker saga. We're already familiar with that universe, so to speak. We're familiar with those planets. We're familiar with the cameos and the different characters. These are all brand new people. Well, you do see Yoda and some other council members, but in general, it's all new people. So of course it's going to be a little difficult to follow at times because there is so much going on. But once you get it, it's so good.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, again, I don't feel like this is a spoiler because I think it's necessary to kind of know what we're talking about. But the Drengir are basically described like this. They're plant-like species of sentient carnivores from the wild space planet Molita. Basically, they have twisted tentacles and a maw arranged with teeth. The creatures share a collective consciousness that could dominate and corrupt other minds, even those of Jedi. So those defenders of light and life feared the Drengir as meat was their sole desire, and they spread a darkness so great it protruded and swayed Jedi Knights into their own collective mind, inflaming the chaos and imbalance upon which the Drengir thrived. So, you know, I didn't read a ton of old expanded universe material, the non-canon stuff now, but you know, I've heard of during the time of what the sequel trilogy ended up being, there was a book series called The New Jedi Order, and apparently there in that the new Jedi that Luke was training faced off against a group called the Yuuzhan Vong, right? Mm-hmm. And that was interesting because I remember them being they were susceptible to the Force. Like you couldn't use the Force on them.
Yep.
So again, this is kind of, I feel like these are kind of, they're introducing creatures like that a little bit back into canon. Ones that are not as affected by the Force and could also basically turn the Force against them in a sense, you know, and get into their minds and and manipulate the Jedi. And obviously that is very powerful and very hard to defeat. So it makes for interesting storylines. Because I remember when this stuff first came out, you know, about the villains, and they showed pictures of the Nihil, they showed pictures of this. I'm like, so how can they actually be that terrifying and that threatening? You know, so I think they're doing a good job of making that a reality, right?
I completely agree. And I think there are other aspects that we especially see in volume 2, other aspects that you can tell they've pulled from other material that's not canon anymore. Because the Yuuzhan Vong was my favorite. And I was so mad when they became no longer canon, because they are a force to be reckoned with, no pun intended. And so I think the Nihil are a way to kind of reintroduce them. It's a different alien race, but it's still a similar concept. Mm-hmm. And then also the other thing in the books that was no longer canon was Jaina and Jason and their connection, which someone said, oh, it's like the dyad that happened between Rey and Ben. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually not like a dyad. It's way deeper than that. And there's a pair of twins in the High Republic, and they can feel each other's pain.
Yes.
Which is exactly what Jason and Jaina could do.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jaina gets into a plane or a fighter pilot crash or something like that. And all of a sudden Jason's like convulsing on the floor in pain.
Yes.
So I think what they're doing is they're taking some of that and infusing it into the High Republic, but in a way that's different. And I know one thing you and I talked about when the High Republic first came out is that we were a little concerned, what storyline are they going to do? Are we going to just get a recycled Skywalker story?
Right.
Clearly we're not. Clearly this is all new, which is great. But once again, it just means you got to pay a little closer attention. You got to read it a bit deeper. But it's worth it. It's worth it once you put all the pieces together.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like maybe we mentioned this when we talked about Volume 1, but I feel like I definitely, I'm having deja vu that we said this already, but I feel like this has to, all these stories, the novels and the comics, I feel like they have to lead somewhere that's going to have some kind of connection to, episode leading into episode 1 or leading into some characters, either Qui-Gon or Dooku or Palpatine or something, because it's always a wonder why you picked this time period, like just 200 years. Because if you really wanted to get into the height of the Jedi and stuff like that, you could have gone all the way. I mean, you could have gone thousands of years, High Republic, or Old Republic, or back. I don't know. You just could have gone back. Maybe they didn't want to get into the Sith stuff yet, or have Sith around. I don't know. But it was curious to put it at this time frame. So I feel like it could. I mean, you're giving yourself a big gap to do stories in. So maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they'll fill it with, eventually, obviously, we're getting the Acolyte show, which takes place apparently High Republic. I feel like there's probably going to be some movies that come out. Maybe that's High Republic games. I don't know. So now that I feel like they know that this is a success, I think we're going to get a lot of High Republic stuff. I
think we will. And honestly, this isn't founded in any research or anything like that. This is just my opinion. I think Avar Kriss is going to be the key into what connects the High Republic to Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I think something's going to happen with her, and that's how, because the other thing we talked about too is that this Jedi Council is drastically different than what we see in the Phantom Menace.
Right.
So I think something happens with Avar Kriss, and that's what makes them form the new Jedi Council, which is what we see in the Phantom Menace. I think so. I personally believe she is the linchpin in all of this. The question is how, and watch in the next book we read, Avar Kriss dies. But
I think you're right. I think Avar. Well, and it could be possible Avar Kriss is a big part of the Acolyte. So
that's true.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she's very significant. Now, these books here, at least right now, more or less, are centering around this character, Keeve Trennis.
Yeah,
and I believe she's still a Padawan. I'm assuming. I think, right?
She is a Padawan. Her master is
Skier. Yeah. He's a Trandoshan Jedi.
That was, I know we talked about that in Volume 1, but that was really cool.
That is really cool
to see that. But yeah, so in this volume, we just get, this fight against the the Drengir. We see them trying to fight against the Drengir, and Skier is currently out of commission, and Keeve is trying to save her master while going through her own trials. It reminds me of a heist plot almost.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just jam-packed with so much action. I mean, the fact alone that they have to team up with some of their biggest enemies, the Hutts, you know, enemy of my enemy is my friend.
That's right. Yep.
So I found that interesting. I'm like, wow, things must be really, really bad if you have to team up with a bunch of bandits.
And speaking of team up, there's also this introduction, although this character was apparently introduced in the novel Into the Dark, which neither of us have gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But it's a character named Orla Gereni. Mm-hmm. And it's this person on the cover here, this female on the cover here, that is kind of a really pale-skinned person with a double-bladed white lightsaber, which is interesting too, because a white lightsaber, at least what we've come to know what that means, is that it is a crystal that used to bleed that has been basically cured in a way. So there's a backstory there. I know you're really curious about that backstory.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she explains that she is a way seeker Jedi.
Yes.
And think of them as the hippie Jedi. They just go wherever the Force takes them. They're just free-spirited people. They don't really align with any code of any kind. They just are with the Force. And I almost wonder if, this is where we start to see gray Jedi come into play. Because way seekers, they tended to want to break away from the rules, and they just believe that the Force is their guide.
Yes.
And the Force will take them to where they need to be. So I can't wait to hear more about her backstory and learn more about Wayseeker Jedi, because once again, we're introduced to something that we haven't really seen before. And I'd be curious to compare that to a gray Jedi like Ahsoka.
Yes, that is very interesting. Apparently, I mean, I just looked her up. She's got a lot of, it looks like she's involved in a lot of stories. So I think her appearance Into the Dark, mentioned only in Light of the Jedi, which I missed that.
I must have missed that one too.
She's in, she appears as a hologram in Midnight Horizon, which is a novel that's out there, and she's in The Falling Star, apparently, which is another novel. So she's around a lot, and of course it names issues 7, 8, 9 of this series, and I think that's all she appears in apparently, because or she's in issue 11 as well, so the next issue. So she's around, and so she's got a lot. There's a lot there, I think, that we need to hear about and see. But that's a good part of this book. Interesting that when this came out in December, the back cover has Avar Kriss riding a Rancor. And of course, we were wondering if we were actually going to see Boba Fett riding a Rancor in the Book of Boba Fett. So they do a good job of tying things together, right?
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. But anyway, this has actually a couple Jedi ride Rancor, so it's actually pretty cool. Okay, so let's see. Anything else in this stands out to you as far as details, obviously, that we don't want to spoil or anything?
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about can't really, because it not only spoils volume 1, but it also spoils this. So can't really touch on that. I will just give a hint and say it has to deal with Skier.
Yes.
I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Well, also the thing, like when you talk about the Drengir, for me, it kind of reminds me of Dungeons and Dragons, because there's a creature in Dungeons and Dragons that's essentially this big brain. And then it has a bunch of other creatures that go around and can take over people's minds. And then the big brain is like the the center point. Well, apparently there's a mommy Drengir.
Yes, there is.
Called the Great Progenitor.
Progenitor? Yeah, that's I'm going with what you're saying. Progenitor.
Progenitor.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too, to see not only are the Drengir tough, but then you got to deal with Mama Bear Drengir.
Big Mama Bear, yeah.
Huge. So
yes.
that was fun to watch.
That was fun to watch. And of course, just a little preview that even though the Drengir is basically the main villain in this, but of course the Nihil are still involved in this thing as well. So
they're still in the background.
They're seemingly the main, if we can say there's a main villain. They're the main villain of this High Republic era right now.
I almost wonder if they're going an Avenger route where, you had the big baddie in the background the whole time, and then all of a sudden they fight him at the end. I wonder if they're going to do that with this or not. I mean, they've at times come to the foreground, but in general, they're in the background a lot. Yeah,
because it seems like, and you kind of get that sense in this, the Jedi are still trying to figure out who's leading them, how many of them are there. I mean, there's still a lot to figure out because they're just they've kind of hung back and not been a threat until now. Now that they've got new leadership, they've got growing numbers. That's kind of what the sense I get with both the novels and the comics, is that they're still trying to figure out what their intent is, what they're trying to do. So it's interesting, and that part too is part of it too, where to me it gets a little confusing too. When you have, I think the structure is like you got 3 tempests, I guess, or it's like you got an eye, you got all these different levels, and you're trying to figure out who's in charge and who's who, and I keep have to refresh my memory. And one of the comics we'll cover at one point too is Marchion Ro, who is the rising big bad of the Nihil. He's got his own comic as well that started. I think it was called Eye of the Storm, and a lot of backstory with him and things like that. So they're covering their bases. It's just a lot to obviously take in and get into, especially when you're reading all these other comics and books from the main timeline.
Do you ever feel like we're getting too much at once?
I do sometimes. I actually do sometimes. That's why I thought it was actually very curious that they introduced this timeline at this point. It's very curious, because I really think that part of me really thinks that they are kind of testing the waters with this to see if anybody would, who's ready to get out of the Skywalker timeline and try something else, right?
Right.
Not sure if it was going to completely take off, and if it didn't, so be it. There's still some novels here, and go enjoy them. But I feel like it's caught on really well. I don't hear anybody really talking bad about the High Republic. The question is are people even checking it out, right?
Right. The question is not, do you like the High Republic? It's, have you heard of the High Republic?
Exactly. So, I think, so there's times where, and it may just be me, because, and you, I don't, we're consuming everything. So it's like, it does get overwhelming sometimes when you got a TV show to watch and you got all these books to watch, these comics to watch. Thankfully, not thankfully, because I want more movies. There's no movies out there right now. They're not running TV show, Disney Plus series at the same time. So it's okay right now. I think the publication side is actually where it's getting crazy, because you've got, not only the High Republic, but you've got I think you got 5 runs of other issues that are out there.
Something like that.
And I feel like they're dropping novels like crazy. You know what I mean? So, and now you're a reader and you read a lot faster than I do, so you can get through them. I can't get through them that fast. I got to listen, and it's just right now when you're not driving I'm not driving as much. It's hard to get through these books that fast, because there was a time when I was driving every day to work, man, I was zooming through books, you know? So anyway, we'll kind of get off a tangent here a little bit, but I agree. I mean, do you get that sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you go over to your grandmother's house and then she gives you cookies and you eat them and you feel full. And then all of a sudden she gives you another batch of cookies and you're looking at them and you're like, man, I'm about to burst, but I can't make her upset. And it gets to the point where she's almost force feeding them to you to make sure, because you're too skinny, you know, that's how I feel sometimes. And it's like, I feel like we're never going to catch up.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, that's the beauty of it. I think, you know, with this show, I didn't want to make it so that we were always doing stuff that's out there right now. This is about really diving into telling you what stories are out there if you want to check them out. You know, we'll rate them and we'll tell you what we think about them. And, you know, the ones that we feel like you should definitely check out, we'll highly encourage those, you know, but that's why I wanted to make sure this is timeless in a sense. Mm-hmm. Because there are, you know, now that it's been probably 4 or 5, at least, well, let's see, Disney bought 2012. I think publication started in 15. So it's been almost 7 years, you know, it'll be 7 years later this year where the books and the comics started coming back out. So there's a lot of material that, you know, people probably missed out on that they don't know whether or not to go back and read. So,
right.
You know, that's where we come in and do that. So that's why we got some other books that we need to go through and, you know, I want to get you obviously reading some of the stuff that you haven't read yet.
There's so much.
There is so much. There is a lot. I mean, it's a lot going on. And like I said, it is daunting for some people. And that's why I think it's good that we talk about it here so that people can pick and choose which ones they want to gravitate towards. Right. So
absolutely,
you know, cause honestly, if I wasn't doing a show like this and talking about everything, that's what I would be doing. I would be only picking and choosing the stories that I really wanted to know about, because it is hard to kind of get all of it, especially the publication side. I mean, it's a lot. I did start reading the Han and Chewbacca comic.
There's a Han and Chewbacca. I didn't even know there was a Han and Chewbacca comic.
Yes, Han Solo and Chewbacca. Yes. I can put it up there if you want to read it.
When does it take place?
It says it takes place several years after Solo.
Okay.
So part of me feels like it's closer to A New Hope, only because the likeness, they drew him to make him look like Harrison, not Alden, right?
Right. So maybe it's a telling of how Han got into deep doo-doo with Jabba the Hutt.
Well, the book is centered around a partnership that Jabba makes Han and Chewie basically go on a mission with, or a job with Greedo. So it's probably going to illustrate the tension that happens with them, obviously.
All right.
But the biggest thing, and it's out there right now, so I'm not spoiling anything. But the biggest thing that the end of issue 1 apparently introduces is Han's father. So there's a big question about that right now out there. So anyway, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'll put it up there if you want to read it.
Oh. do I want to read it?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one I think I'll, kind of like War of the Bounty Hunters. I'll probably read that as it comes out, and then we'll do a show about it when when the volume hits. So, all right, good little segue at the end there. Just kind of talk about a little bit about the show and what we're doing. So, anyway, back to this real fast. How would you rate this volume 2 here?
The thing is that it's jam packed with I mean, I feel like I sound like a broken record player at this point with the comics. They always are jam packed with all of this action. Story's great. It's just, I feel like with this one, I feel like they tried to jam too much too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably take it up just a little bit. I'll give it a 4. I
was teetering between the two.
Yeah, I can understand a 3.5, but I'll give it a 4 just because I think my initial read of it was really good. Like I thought it was really good and exciting, and I do like these characters. I like Avar Kriss. I like Trennis. I like Skier a lot, so, and I'm curious about this what is it? A Wayseeker?
Wayseeker.
Yeah. So,
Wayseeker, right? I'm not messing that one up.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Pretty sure you're right. So I'm curious. I'm definitely curious, about these characters and how this is going to go. So, we'll definitely keep this going. Volume 3, I don't think hits out till this summer. So, not this summer, but like I think in June or July or something like that. So we'll follow up on volume 3 when that gets out there.
Absolutely.
And look for us to keep going on other stories. I think we have Aftermath still to finish up. We got the Star Wars comic series. I looked, and we've got 4 more volumes of there to hit up. And then, of course, there's some other one-off stories that I want Hannah to read up on. And we still got High Republic novels to get into as well. So, yes, lots to do, Hannah. Lots to do.
Bring it.
And I will say that, well, no, because this is probably coming out later. So I would have already said it. So I can't do that. I keep thinking that these aren't all out all right after, we do them. So, but anyway, I will say that, okay, I could do this because this is after, right? So, there will be a show that, on Inside the Force that I will have made an announcement about launching our Patreon page. So at this point, it should be out there.
Spoilers.
Yes, so it should be out there. So if you were interested, that was a big decision to make because I haven't dived into that ever, and I wasn't going to. But there's definitely things I want to do with it and get more interaction with our fan base and give back to them more, give some exclusive content and stuff like that. So that's where Hannah and I'm going to talk to you about that. We'll get some exclusive stuff going with these stories and stuff like that. So anyway, little tease there. I don't think all the details. I don't think I've talked about all the details yet. So we'll see. Anyway, I'm rambling. No one probably knows what I'm talking about. All right. So I get, like we said, 3.5, 4. Yep. Yeah, we're into it. High Republic is still something to dive into. So definitely check those out. And we will be back soon.
Absolutely.
So thank you, as always, Hannah, for joining me on this.
Thank you. It's an honor as always.
Yes, you make this really fun. And it's good because I don't know anybody right now. I'm not close to anybody that's reading all this stuff. So, so thanks.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, everybody. Again, InsideTheForce.com. Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe there, and get all of our shows. And find us on Patreon/InsideTheForce at all if you want to check out our perks and see what we can get for you guys. Thank you. Take care. Hannah Burr.
Thank you. May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.